Let's get
lyrical. It's a miracle how he gets so lyrical.
Should we listen to one more Shaking Your Fist at God song?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So this is also from a musical. I have a few songs from musicals today. Now this, have you seen Book of Mormon?
Yes.
So, this is an incredible song, I think. I think it's... I laughed to tears the first time I heard this.
In this part of Africa, we all have a say. Whenever something bad happens, we just throw our hands to the sky and say, Hasa, Diga, Eebowai.
Hasa, Diga, Eebowai?
It's the only way to get through all these troubled times. There's war, poverty, famine.
And of course, this is their play on Hakuna Matata.
Makes it all seem better. There
Like,
isn't enough
self-consciously.
food to eat. Hasa, Diga, Eebowai. People are starving in the street. Hasa, Diga, Eebowai.
Well, that's pretty neat. Does it mean no worries for the rest of our days?
Kind of. We've
There
had
it
no
is.
rain in several days.
Kind of.
And 80% of us have AIDS. Many young girls here get circumcised. The clits get cut right off. Well,
and so we say up to the sky. Hasadiga Eebowai.
I do wonder how I'd feel about the show if I was Ugandan, but I bet it must have Ugandan fans. I mean, the good thing about the show is that, true to South Park style, everyone
is-
gets totally skewered.
Yeah.
You know, and well, I'll talk about it afterwards.
now you try. Just stand up tall, tilt your head to the sky, and list off the bad things in your life.
Somebody took our luggage away. The plane was crowded and the bus was late.
First world problems.
When the world is getting you down, there's nobody else to blame. Raise your middle finger to the sky and curse his rotten name.
Wait, what? Hasadiga Eebowai. Am I saying that? Excuse me, sir, but what exactly does that phrase mean?
Well, let's see. Eebowai means God, and Hasadiga means fuck you. So I guess in English it would be fuck you, God.
Hasadiga Eebowai.
What? When God fucks you in the butt.
Hasadiga Eebowai.
Fuck God right back in his cunt.
Hasadiga Eebowai.
The build of the comedy, the rollout is just fucking genius.
Excuse me, sir, but you should really not be saying that. Things aren't always as bad as they seem.
Oh, really? Well, take this fucking asshole Matumbo here. He got caught last week trying to rape a baby.
What? Why?
Some people in his tribe believe that having sex with a virgin will cure their AIDS. There aren't many virgins left, so some of them are turning to babies.
But that's horrible.
I know.
Hasadiga Eebowai.
Here's the butcher, he has AIDS. Here's the teacher, she has AIDS. Here's the doctor, he has AIDS. Here's my daughter, she has a wonderful disposition. She's all I have left in the world. And if either of you lays a hand on her, I will give you my AIDS.
If you don't like what we say, try living here a couple days. Watch all your friends and family die. Hasadiga Eebowai for you. Hasadiga Eebowai. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you in the eye. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you in the other eye.
the thing about them is, if they didn't take things all the way, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. It's
But
just
they
going to
take
say,
things-
like,
Yeah.
they so go over the board and further, they can't go back, so they have to, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's incredible. And Bobby Lopez co-wrote the score with them. But I mean, from the show, and he really, I think, gave it that musical theater sheen. But they're big musical theater fans, and that break in the middle of it, where the chieftain, who, by the way, have you ever watched The Wire?
No.
Okay, that actor was on The Wire, a very different
Okay.
character. He played a Nation of Islam assassin named Brother Muzon. But anyway, where here's the butcher, he has AIDS. Here's my daughter, she has a wonderful disposition, which is an important plot point where we introduce her. So even in the middle of a fun comedy song, using that real estate to move the plot forward is it's very well crafted, but this is, I think, having the most fun of all the talking back to God songs.
Oh man, they must have had so much fun making this.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine being in the original cast or being in the cast at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw it twice and loved it twice. Like, it was the main, what's that character what's that song that the suppressed gay?
Oh, Turn It Off.
Yeah, I love that song.
Oh, yeah. Every song is, and the song I Believe and I Am Africa.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's this We Are the World parody where it's basically
Yeah.
like, I'm a white European and like I am Africa. I am the gazelles on the Serengeti. I am the Lion King. Africans are African, but I am Africa. it's about white people, getting their identity from other people's cultures.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you were talking about earlier in terms of humans making God
Mhm.
and taking responsibility for that, the turn that I didn't see coming at the end of the show, which I thought really redeemed it, not necessarily that it needed it, but it could have just been a crude, it could have left me with sort of a dirty feeling, like also having fun at the expense of these poor, miserable people with AIDS and talking about female circumcision. Like, it's when you actually think about it, and most of the audience is white, so there's a kind of inequality to it, and the creators were all white. But the plot twist that I absolutely love is that when the schlub, Elder Cunningham, starts lying and making up this whole myth about, he basically he tries to give them a version of the history of Mormonism that they'll relate to, and he makes up all this stuff about Joseph Smith having AIDS and fucking frogs and fucking babies to try and cure his AIDS and all this stuff, and they all get into it, and they do this, and then the church comes, the elders come to Uganda, and the Africans put on this play for them, this pageant, and they act it out, and they're all horrified, but it turns out the Africans know it's bullshit. They know it's just a story, but they like it. Like, it does something for them, but they know full well that it's made up, much more than the Mormons actually do. And they're connected to a sense of the mythic that you choose what to believe based on what actually gives you meaning and empowers you. And I found that actually really, really touching at the end of this crude, vulgar, sometimes cruel show. It actually has a real heart to it, which is a real accomplishment.
That's true. Yeah.
That connects to what you were talking about, right? You were talking about how, like, we made him up, so why don't we take responsibility for the meaning we make about him? And that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
And so in the end,
the ending, but yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's in the end, it's not a show that hates religion. It's just encouraging us to not take ourselves so seriously.
And we're in the same boat. Like, we all do that. It's not like that group of people is crazy because they are worshiping. We're all looking for something. But
and you know what? And even the most hardcore atheists are some of the most fundamentalist people I know. Like, there's a kind of worship of rationality and science and
which
all
is
this stuff.
Actually not me. It's not
I
me.
get that.
Like, when I say I'm an atheist, I was raised without religion or without knowing of religion and it not being in my surroundings. But yeah, when you look at Ricky Gervais or something, like that is,
Or Sam Harris, or these guys.
yeah, those fundamentalists that I'm like, as much as I adore him,
Yeah.
and I, to a certain point, to a certain extent, I am with him. But then when it comes to spirituality, is where I lose him.
Well, because he becomes his David Brent character. Oh, am I triggering you? Oh, am I? Oh, I'm
I
being
love that
naughty
British
now.
accent.
Yeah, yeah. So religious people, if you're offended, I don't care.
Yeah.
That sounded a little Australian, but that's sort of he's just a bit of a twerp when it comes to that stuff, and he is, yeah, he has his dogmatic belief that there is no God.
Yeah, that it's just over. It's just dirt, and it might very well be. But how, if we
But
if we
why?
if we don't know that he's not there, how do we do know, if we, what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Why be
How do you,
so fundamental about it? Like,
there's an
what do
arrogance
you know?
and evangelical too. What is his stand-up comedy except trying to convert? And Bill Maher too. Bill Maher made a huge movie called Religulous, basically making fun of religion. And what's he trying to do but to persuade and convert people to his way of seeing things? So
Hmm.
there's a lot of shadow stuff here. In the Jungian sense, like what you don't like about what you reject in yourself, you're going to judge in other
Yeah,
people.
there's in that sort of anger, or in that sort of convertism, I don't know if that's a word, but it feels there's also sort of a bit of suppression, or whatever it is,
Yes.
so some stuff that can't be, I don't know. It's a shame, because I was so with him, and then I lose him. But
The atheist doth protest too much.
yeah.
It reminds me of this great quote from a Canadian novel called The Manticore. I think it was from that one. It's from a trilogy by Robertson Davies. And a guy is talking to his therapist. And this is not about God, but it applies just as well. He's talking about what a great guy his father was. And the therapist exclaims, "My God, you're a fanatic." And the guy says, "That's a rather unprofessional outburst, don't you think?" And the therapist says, "Not at all. Don't you know what fanaticism is? It's an overcompensation for doubt."
Hmm. Yeah, it's so sort of, it comes across almost a bit juvenile, where you're like,
Yes, it does.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
just before, because if you then listen to people like Michael Singer, for example, I don't know if that rings a bell, but you
I
know
think I know who that is. Yeah.
he sort of says, the world's just a sort of a buildup of stuff building up on each other for 13.8 billion years. Who are you to think that you're just here, just for 3 seconds?
Yeah.
What we're all trying to play God in a way,
Absolutely. And you think Ricky Gervais doesn't have a God complex every time he does a Netflix special? I mean, the ego on some of these fundamentalist atheists is, well, that's a whole other story.
But
We
it's
all have
interesting, because
we all have
I wish there was a way, 'cause I'm not verbally strong enough to have a conversation or a discussion with him, but I would love to see a different kind of conversation about that with him, instead of the
Yeah.
sort of the defensive, cynical, funny way of looking at it. I think that, when you have Russell Brand and Ricky Gervais, they have had a conversation, I think, together about that stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, Brand is a think he's capable of complex thinking, and he's also capable of taking people in good faith. And he's interviewed my dad and my brother, and he is curious, and
Hmm.
he has strong opinions, but he
Yeah,
doesn't put his opinions front and center. He puts his questions front and center,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so that's, yeah. I think that puts him above Ricky Gervais in terms of being a useful voice in the conversation about spirituality. But I'd be interested to hear what the two of them had to say together.
Yeah, because yeah, again, like Ricky Gervais, I dream about him once in a while, like that we have a loving relationship and stuff. You know, I have a real. He reminds me of my dad. Maybe it is that sort of atheist kind of vibe. Um, so there's
Well,
that again, the love hate.
yeah. I mean, I think he can also be a little bit, oh, am I offending you? Like on other social issues and stuff, like whatever you think about the issues, his attitude towards it can be very, very snotty.
Yeah.
But I will always love him for the British Office, which is just one of the greatest
Oh
things
my goodness.
ever created.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know who said that? Dolly Parton. And people say she's just a pair of tits.
But what I do love about him is that he is in fact a very beautiful actor. Like
Yes,
he
he
can
can
be
be, yeah.
so subtle. You know, he's when he speaks he's so fundamental, but when he acts, you know, there's a scene where he's in the Big Brother celebrity house, and he looks at the camera and he talks to his friend who he lost along the way trying to get famous, and he's just pouring his heart out in that Big Brother house to that camera to her, and he starts crying, and it's so beautiful.
Mm.
So I know that he has this. I know he's a sensitive soul. I know he's a fragile person somewhere, but he doesn't let us. He only lets us see that in his acting, I guess. Well, and fair enough.
Didn't he do a show about ghosts or about at least about grief and
Yes,
death?
he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very sensitive person in there. I think very, but yeah. Anyway,
Well,
I am slightly obsessed with him in a sort of funny way.
These words are my
Podcast
With Carice and Daniel.